Threads of gold. Every morning at 6:15, the street lamp outside Myra's window blinked off. And every morning exactly at that moment, she awoke to the distant hum of her father's scooter sputtering to life. From her bed she could count the 15 slow, conscious puffs of exhaust before he turned the corner and headed to the textile factory where he worked 12 hours a day. She would lie very still, breathing in the faint scent of mothballs and jasmine that lingered in her room, reminders of her mother's late-night sewing sessions, stitching school uniforms for other children in the neighborhood so that Mira and her younger brother, Arjun, never missed a blouse or a pair of trousers. 1. The house of threadbare rugs. Their home was no bigger than a single-room studio. A battered wooden cot, a cracked ceramic sink, and 2 stacked trunks served as both wardrobe and dining table. On festival nights, a single string of multicolored bulbs was draped around the lone window. At Diwali, their entire front yard was the threshold of the street outside, lit only by small clay lamps that everyone in the lane shared. But Mira didn't think of it as small. She thought of it as cozy. She thought of it as safe. Because in that cramped room, amid the threadbare rugs and bare bulb, her parents built something most rich people could never afford, a home brimming with dreams. 2. The first sacrifice. One sweltering July, when Mira turned 9, her school announced an inter-school painting contest. The prize was modest, just some watercolors, but the entry fee was 50 rupees. To Mira, 50 rupees was the month's electricity bill. She approached her mother that afternoon, clutching a tattered lottery ticket she traded from a friend. "Ma," she whispered, "can I join? Please? I'll win, I promise." Her mother knelt before her, unpinned a scrap of cloth from her makeshift sewing kit, and handed her a single rupee. "I don't have 50, she said softly, "but here's one. I'll stitch the other 49 tomorrow." That night, by the glow of a dim kerosene lamp, her mother sewed uniforms for 2 schoolgirls and patched 3 pairs of trousers. With every stitch, her shoulders ached more, and her fingertips bled. Mira and Arjun slept soundly in the next room, unaware that the cloth they woke up to was interwoven with their mother's sacrifice. 3. The geometry box. A year later, Mira discovered geometry. Angles and arcs made sense, they fit together like puzzle pieces. On her 12th birthday, she asked for a new geometry box. The old one was missing its compass, and she had taken to drawing perfect circles in the margins of her notebook with a pin. Her father arrived home that evening carrying a polished wooden box that rattled suspiciously. Myra's eyes lit up. When he opened it, inside lay a gleaming metal compass, 2 protractors, and a full set of colored pencils. Over dinner, he said nothing. But later, as the 2 of them lay on the cot, father and daughter side by side, Mira heard him whisper into the darkness, "Tomorrow, I'll skip lunch." He had earned just enough to cover the rent and food that week. The geometry set cost nearly a day's wages. Sitting there, Mira realized that her perfect circles had come at the expense of one of her father's meals. 4. The rusted scooter. When Mira turned 16, the gearbox on her father's scooter broke. It shuddered violently every time he tried to shift gears, and one afternoon the engine died entirely, leaving him stranded halfway to the factory. The next morning, he showed up on foot, carrying a satchel of cold chapatis. Mira wanted to ask why he didn't take a bus, every rupee mattered, but her mother stopped her. By evening, the scooter had disappeared from its usual spot outside the gate. Mira tiptoed downstairs to find her father standing in the dim glow of the street lamp. In his hands was a small bundle of metal, an old bicycle frame, stripped of wheels and chains. He looked at Mira and said, "I'll earn my way back to the scooter." And so he began delivering newspapers before dawn, juggling both jobs until, 6 weeks later, he had enough to fix the gearbox and still a few rupees left over for groceries. 5. Graduation day. Mira received her acceptance letter to a prestigious college with a single scholarship slot. She burst into tears when she saw it, but so did her parents, for the same reason. College fees were beyond their means, scholarship or no scholarship. The remaining tuition would swallow their entire year's savings from sewing and side work. But they did not argue. Instead, they sold the only gold chain her mother had ever owned, one she had bought with her first year's bonus from the factory, decades ago, and her father took out a small loan from a neighbor, promising to pay it back by doing extra shifts. On the morning Mira left home for the first time, her mother packed her lunch in an old tiffin, included a neatly folded sari scrap to remind her of home, and wiped Myra's tears with a rough but tender hand. Her father, in a borrowed shirt, stood silent, but Mira saw his eyes red beneath his creased forehead. 6. Letters and video calls. During her first semester, Mira sent letters every week. Handwritten pages filled with stories of late-night study groups, hostel meals, and the thrill of independence. Each letter was locked in an envelope sealed with wax, not because it mattered, but because she wanted it to feel special, like a gift to the only two people who always believed in her. Whenever she called home on her phone's crackling video cam, her mother would hold up 2 fingers to the camera, tracing invisible stitches in the air with her fingertips, a silent "I love you, keep going." Her father would lean into frame, rough hands brushing his hair back, and point to Myra's forehead. "Study hard," the gesture said. But she understood it as, "I would carry all the world on these shoulders if I could, but you must carry yourself now." 7. The internship offer. In her final year, Mira landed an internship at a top design firm. The stipend was generous, but the office was across town, requiring bus fare she couldn't always afford. She considered refusing it. She hated the idea of her parents spending more on her transportation when they struggled to meet daily needs. But when she broke the news, her mother gripped her hand firmly and said, "Opportunity doesn't wait, Beta. We'll manage. We always do." The next morning, Mira found her father waiting at the bus stop, wrapped in a worn shawl, holding 2 crumpled 10-rupee notes. "For your fare," he said, voice thick. "Don't let me down." She didn't. She worked long hours, studied late at night, and returned home every single rupee she could. 8. The reveal. At the end of her internship, Myra's design for a sustainable community center won first prize. The firm offered her a full-time position, with a salary double what her parents ever earned. She returned home that evening with an envelope thicker than usual. Inside was the official letter of employment, and another envelope addressed to her parents. "Open this first," the company's director had written in his scrawl. Inside lay severance packages for both her mother and father, lifetime health benefits, a small pension, and a lump sum gift to honor the sacrifices they'd made for their daughter's education. Mira collapsed into tears as her mother read the letter aloud. Her father sat quietly, staring at the page as if seeing his whole life's work reflected in those typed words. 9. The evening party. That night, Mira hosted a small gathering in the one-room house. Friends from the firm, distant cousins, and neighbors who had watched her grow up. The single string of Diwali lights was back, draped around the window, this time, strung high and bright. On a folding table lay samosas, sweet jalebis, cold sodas. When it was time to speak, Mira stood on a wooden stool, cleared her throat, and said, "I made my first home in that college hostel. But there's only one house I'll ever truly call home." She pointed to her parents, seated on their cot. The room grew silent as she recounted the blazer her father bought and skipped meals to afford, the geometry box her mother sewed uniforms to pay for, the rusty bicycle he rebuilt, and the gold chain she sold. "Tonight isn't just a celebration of my success," she said, voice trembling. "It's a celebration of your sacrifices. Every sleepless night, every aching muscle, every silent prayer. If I am here today, it's only because you wove my dreams from threads of your own lives." Tears filled every eye in the room. And before she could finish, her mother rose and wrapped her arms around her. Her father followed, pressing his forehead to hers. 10. The house reborn. Over the next month, Myra's new salary allowed her to make small but meaningful changes. The peeling paint was repainted in soft pastels. The cracked sink was replaced. A small bookshelf, handcrafted by Myra's own design, found its place against the wall, filled with her college textbooks and her parents' favorite novels. Outside, she installed a simple nameplate: Home of Unspoken Riches. She placed it carefully beside the string of bulbs, now solar-powered and permanent. 11. Epilogue: The Quiet Wealth. Years later, when Myra herself became a mother, she read bedtime stories to her little boy under the same pastel walls. And when he asked about the cracked sink or the old wooden cot, she would smile and tell him this was where every scrap of love ever woven in this house took root. One evening, on her way to tuck him in, Myra paused by the gate. The street lamp blinked off at 6:15, a habit established long ago, and for a moment, she was 9 years old again, listening for her father's scooter. But there was no scooter. Her parents had retired from the factory. The street outside was quieter now. She realized with a soft ache that those early mornings were theirs alone, treasured, irreplaceable. She whispered into the dusk, "Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Baba." And in the cool night air, she imagined their gentle voices answering back. Takeaway: true wealth isn't counted in rupees or dollars. It's measured in the silent sacrifices, the hidden tears, and the unseen labor of those who love you most. When your parents aren't rich by society's standards but still afford to give you a life rich in opportunity and dignity, remember, they are the truest millionaires you will ever know. Honor them today, tomorrow, and every day after. Thank you for spending this time with us. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Don't Give Up. Let's continue exploring life's challenges and insights together.